When we came back to California, we thought we'd be staying for maybe a month or two before heading back out into the world. But that's not what happened. We ended up staying much longer than we planned, and honestly, coming home after traveling for a year was the hardest part of our entire gap year. Here's why. First, let's do a quick recap. We did a family gap year in 2023 with a baby and a toddler, where we spent the year traveling through Guatemala, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. And by the end of the year, we weren't quite done traveling yet, but life had other plans. This is part 3 of our 5-part series about our family's gap year of travel. In the first video, we shared what inspired us to leave California and spend the year traveling with our 2 daughters. In the second, we talked honestly about what it was really like traveling with a baby and a toddler, the highs, the lows, and everything that surprised us. If you've missed the first 2 videos in this series, we'll link the playlist below so you can follow our story from the beginning. Now let's get back to the video.
When we first came back to California, the plan wasn't to stay there for the long term. We thought we would just stay for the holidays, spend time with family, and then head back out. But right after Thanksgiving, we found that we were expecting our 3rd baby. So naturally, we talked about how we would welcome our new baby to the world, and staying in California just seemed like the right call.
I had just turned 40, so that meant that my pregnancy was considered high risk, and we thought that we wanted consistency, access to healthcare that we were familiar with, and also the comfort of knowing that we had family nearby since we already had 2 kids. We thought that we would need to help in preparing to welcome another baby. We also thought that financially it would be beneficial for us to stay in California because we figured that we'd be able to get health insurance again through my husband's previous job. So all in all, staying in California really seemed like the right decision for our family in that moment. But I won't lie that there wasn't some grieving related to the realization that we wouldn't be traveling again for a while. Looking back though, we realized that there were so many assumptions built into that decision. And because we were going back to a place where we had spent so many years, we thought that everything would fall naturally back into place and that picking up where we left off would be relatively straightforward, but we couldn't have been more wrong.
I had been working a government job for about 7.5 years, and before we left for our gap year, I had spoken to my union rep and managers about taking a possible sabbatical leave, but they denied it. They said simply just reapply and we'll rehire you, no problem. And that's how we left it. So I thought I was coming back to something familiar, but that just wasn't the case. There was months of interviews and paperwork. It was simply like starting all over again. They had me go back to an academy training I had done many years ago, and it was all the way in downtown, so I was driving 2+ hours to get to this training. My pay and benefits were also not quite the same when I came back. I was also dealing with a possible surgery, so we were stressed financially and emotionally. We simply thought we were coming back to the same lifestyle, and I thought I was going back to my same job, but it just felt like we were starting all over again, and we had to adjust our expectations.
And that was a tough reality for us to face. Apart from that, as time went by, we started noticing that even though we were back home, it didn't really feel like home anymore, at least not like it used to. We had spent the previous year constantly adapting to new cultures, new places, new languages, different ways of living, and we thought that coming home after long-term travel would feel familiar and comfortable, but it was a lot harder than we expected.
And we realized what we were experiencing is reverse culture shock. People have heard of culture shock when you move to a new place, but reverse culture shock can happen when you return home after being a long time away. And the interesting thing is that your home really hasn't changed much, but you have as a person, as a family. Travel has a way of changing your perspective because you've observed things you've never questioned before, like different values and lifestyles. You realize that there isn't just one normal, and once you see it, it's really hard to unsee it.
And for me personally, this wasn't the first time I'd experienced it. Years ago, when I was a teenager, I studied abroad in Guatemala for a year, and when I returned to Belgium, I had similar feelings. I had a really hard time fitting back in with my old friend group because they had all experienced their first year at university or college, while I had been living in a completely different culture, learning a whole new language, and I had just changed so much over that year that there was a disconnect. This time, after traveling for a full year as a family, those feelings kind of came back, only a little bit different since we experienced it as a family. Everything felt like it was taking so much more effort than before, like there was no natural flow of things, and there was no ignoring it, even if we wanted to. So after a while, we just started asking ourselves, like, why were we having these feelings, and what were these feelings trying to tell us? And if you've ever come home after traveling for an extended period, whether that was living abroad, studying overseas, or a long family trip, and felt like you didn't really fit back into your old life, you're definitely not alone.
And for us, that's what traveling is all about, challenging our perspective. When you spend a year away experiencing different cultures and lifestyles, you automatically start comparing, not because you're looking for the best place, but because you realize there isn't just one way to live a life. We started looking at our everyday life in different ways. Was this pace of life still working for our family? Were we spending our time the way we wanted to? And were our careers actually supporting the type of lifestyle that we wanted for our family?
And there are practical things too. The cost of living in California just continued to climb. The California fires were happening quite close to us as well. And daily life just got really busy again. And so there were just a bunch of little things that started to build up.
And the one thing we started to realize was you can love a place, and at the same time, it can no longer be the right fit for the life that you're in. It doesn't make the place bad, it's just you change, you evolve, and your priorities change, like it did for us when we had our third child. And this doesn't mean that our experience will be the same as someone else's. It's just a process that we went through.
And not long after my husband had returned to work, our third baby was born, and it was honestly a very empowering birthing experience. Bringing him into our family felt quite different this time, and it really created a whole new rhythm of everyday life. My husband was leaving before the kids would wake up in the morning and would come back after dinner. And between the commute and the long work days, these 12-hour days became the new normal for us. And with 3 young kids, those days felt really long for both of us. And one thing that surprised us was how different our expectations were from reality. And we had imagined that being back near family would naturally mean that there would be a lot more support. And while our family was there when we truly needed them, and we were incredibly grateful for that, we also learned that everybody just has their own lives. They have their own jobs, their own responsibilities, and living closer to family doesn't necessarily mean that there's an automatic day-to-day kind of support system. And that's just reality. And it made us realize that we were not necessarily looking for a different location. We were really looking for more time together as a family, more presence, more flexibility. And these were the exact things that we experienced during our gap year traveling with our kids. And the importance of those values became even clearer to us.
Looking back now, coming home taught us just as much as leaving did. Traveling gave us so many incredible memories, introduced our kids to many cultures and experiences. And as our values became clear, we started asking ourselves a question that sounded a bit crazy to those around us. What if we left again? Not to escape something, but to move toward a life that was more aligned with the family we have become.
No, that doesn't mean that traveling is the answer for everyone. There are so many beautiful ways to build a meaningful family life. For us, travel is just the best path that is most aligned with our values. And if there's one thing we hope this series encourages you to do, it's not to necessarily book a plane ticket, but it's really to take a moment and ask yourself this question: what does your ideal family life look like? And what steps can you take towards creating that life? Because the answer might surprise you. And in our next video, we'll share the conversation that led us to pack our bags again, this time as a family of 5, and why leaving the US a second time felt very different from the first.
If you've been enjoying this series, we'd love you to join our community by subscribing to our channel. Give the video a like if you found this helpful. It really helps us reach to other families who are curious about traveling with young kids.
And if you're looking for more family travel inspiration, be sure to check out our other videos on luxury family hotels, travel tips, and exploring the world with little ones. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye!